Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير يعلم ما يعلج في الأرض وما يخرج منها وما ينزل من السماء وما يعرج فيها وهو الرحيم الغفور اللهم لك الحمد على ما أنعمت به علينا من تنزيل القرآن اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this Sunday morning with a gap from the last week, for allowing us to resume reflection on his book. He has invited us to reflect on the book so that we can gain certainty, we can gain knowledge, we can gain wisdom, and we can find our way back to him. أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ وَإِلَى السَّمَاءِ كَيْفَ رُفِعَتْ وَإِلَى الْجِبَالِ كَيْفَ نُصِبَتْ وَإِلَى الْأَرْضِ كَيْفَ سُطِحَتْ. This is where we had left last time. We reflected on the signs of creation, and this is in continuation from several weeks of focusing on the creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for our benefits and for our reflections, and for allowing us to return to him in a state where it will be said, inshallah, that he is pleased with us and we will be pleased with him, bi'iznillahi ta'ala. Today, inshallah, we are going to focus on how to reflect. We always read these ayahs when we started this particular session. We always read, we always understand the invitation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to use the inner faculties that he has granted us to reflect on the signs that he has shown. And these signs that he has shown are the ayats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he has said, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ. We shall show them our signs fil afaq, on the horizons, wa fi anfusihim, and within themselves, until they hatta yatabayyana lahum, hatta it becomes absolutely clear to them that this is haqq, this is the truth. Avalam yakfi bi rabbika annahu ala kulli shay'in shaheed. The second part of the ayah of this particular ayah, 53, number 53 of Surah Fussilat, is of particular importance today. Avalam yakfi bi rabbika annahu ala kulli shay'in shaheed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that he is witness to everything. Shaheed, shahada, shahada. Shaheed is the one who actually witnesses. This particular aspect of the one who is looking and reflecting has modes of reflection, and we want to understand these different ways of reflection. Different ways of reflection. So the session today, inshallah, if we are granted the tawfiq by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to learn how to reflect. Granted that we understand the command to reflect is there. We have understood that. But the task of reflection itself requires some learning. The example of that is, if we were to reflect on this room where we are sitting, this particular space in which we are enclosed, we cannot really reflect on it because we are part of it. We are sitting inside, and how can we be an observer to the place where we are? We are already part of that, so our ability to really have the reality of this space understood is already compromised because we are in it. In order to see something objectively, we have to be outside that particular space. If we go outside this room, we have a different perspective on this particular space. Suddenly, we see more than what we were looking at before, because now our perspective has changed. We have gained a certain depth. We have become more objective because we are not in this room anymore, we are looking at it from outside. So when we look at any situation, when we look at any phenomena in the universe, we are outside that phenomena. When Ibrahim alayhi salam saw the stars, he saw the sun, he saw the moon, all of these were observable from outside. So he could say that the sun has set, the stars have set, the moon has set. If he was on the moon, it wouldn't be possible to say the moon has set. In order to reflect on the signs to which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has invited us, we need to be able to be outside the domain upon which we are reflecting. But because everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents to us for reflection in the realm of creation is everything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are part of that. We are part of the creation upon which we are being asked to reflect. We cannot go out of the creation. It's like being in a crucible. But because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew this, He created this, He invited us to reflect on the creation, knowing that we are part of creation. So there is a methodology that He has also shown us. I mean, this methodology is present in the Qur'an itself, but it needs to be explicated. It needs to be taken to a place, into a system that allows us to have a systematic process of learning how to reflect. So the scholars, when they reflected on the ayahs which invite us to reflect, they said, all of these ayahs which say, Inna fi dhalika la ayah, in this is a sign for you. All of these ayahs in the Qur'an actually refer to three distinct realms. So, in order to systematically reflect on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they said, you cannot take the entirety of creation all at once, but because there is a scaffolding, there are three distinct domains. Sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi wa fi anfusihim. Two are mentioned in this particular ayah. Afaq and fi anfusihim. Fi anfusihim, within their own beings. And afaq is translated as horizons. And it's very interesting to go into the details of the tafsir literature, because the very first layer of explanation is connected with the time of revelation itself. Fil afaq in many tafasirs is explained as the afaq of Makkah, which is very interesting because it was only later on they said, no, this is more general than that, because the immediate context for the Sahaba and for the first generation after them was what was happening when these ayahs were being revealed. So, Waqala Mujahid, this is one of the earliest tafasirs of this ayah. Sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi yani ma yaftah Allahu alayhi min al-Qur'an wa fi anfusihim. Qala Fath Makkah. This is the Fath Makkah. This is the opening of Makkah. And then Al-Dahak, he says that ma'anahu anna Aba Jahl qala li Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam itina bi alamati. Abu Jahl said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, bring us an alama, bring us a sign. Fanshak al-Qamar nisfain, and then the moon was split into two halves. And فقال أبو جهل للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن كان القمر قد انشق فهي آية. ثم قال يا معشر القريش إن محمدا قد سخر القمر. Subhanallah. So Abu Jahl asked for a sign. When the moon was split, he goes to the Quraysh, and what does he say? Na'udhu billah, qad sahara inna Muhammadan kan sahara al-qamar. This is the magic that Muhammad has produced. For the splitting of the moon, for him, was mesmerization, hadha sihrun mustamir. So this is one of the first layers of this tafsir of this ayah. And then later on, other scholars, the same scholars, they mention that fil afaqi sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi ma wada'a fil alam min ad-dalail wa fi anfusihim ma wada'a fiha min ad-dalail. They say sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi means everything in the alam. And you remember what alam is? We defined Rabbil Alameen. Alam was everything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the signs on the horizons, which is very poor translation, but this is the literal translation, uf and afaq is the plural, what is on the horizon. But when you think about horizon, it becomes very difficult to, what immediately comes to mind is just this horizon of the sky, but that's not what is meant. It's everything that is observable, that is within the perception, afaq, fi anfusihim. Now the third part is not in this ayah, the third realm is not in this ayah, but that is in the ayat, inna fi dhalika la-ayah. Inna fi dhalika la-ayah. There are 20 ayahs in the Qur'an using this phrase. In this is a sign. In this is a sign. And some of these ayahs, they are attached to the history. They are attached to the human history. Therefore, the third realm is the human history. The first, there is no sequential order in these. I'm saying these because in this ayah we have Sanurihim ayatina fil afaq in the cosmic ayahs, fi anfusihim within themselves, and this third part is in the human history. We understand the third realm because the ayahs inna fi dhalika la ayah refer to what happened in history on this planet. And the history part in the Quran is also needs to be, like, when we reflect on it, it's very important to realize that there is a huge difference in learning or from history from the Quranic perspective and history from the non-Quranic perspective. Huge difference. When we say history from a non-Quranic perspective, what comes to mind is just the sequential coming and going of the empires and the kings and the battles and the events, and this is called history. This is not history. These are events happening on this earth. There are names. They are history in a way, but they are record of this happened on such and such date. The Quranic perspective on human history is the response of human beings to the invitation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His messengers. So if we reflect on all the narrations in the Qur'an dealing with human history, they are invariably connected with the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been guiding humanity through His messengers until the coming of the last of the messengers. And He preserved in the Qur'an segments of responses of people to His messengers. It tells us that Nuh alayhi salam, for instance, lived on this planet. He called people for 950 years, right? And he said only a few believed. And then there is a very this last set of ayahs is really in Surah Nuh, the last set of ayahs. That's a huge set of ayahs for reflection. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell us that there were 450 people who believed in Him. He doesn't. And Nuh alayhi salam's dua is that to destroy everybody other than those who had believed in Him, because they are going to give birth to Fujjar. Situation has become so corrupt that every child who comes in this dunya comes on fitrah, but the environment at that time has become so poisonous that immediately there is this destruction of the inherent purity of these children. 950 years is a very long time from our perspective. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives perspective on history by creating these prototype situations. So we have someone called Fir'aun, which, by the way, is not one individual. Fir'aun is the title of the kings of Egypt. And there are individuals within that title, but everyone is a Fir'aun. So just the name Fir'aun, like for believers, for people who have read the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't need anything else after that. Just that one single word has become symbol of transgression, of arrogance, of oppression, like all these. And then also in that narration about Musa alayhi salam, this particular Fir'aun, when he says at the very last minute that I believe in the Lord of Bani Israel, is not accepted. So what does that teach us? In our lives, in every human life, there is a cutoff point. Once that time has reached, it's not going to be accepted. Iman is not accepted. What we understand from all of this is that there is the invitation to reflect on the three realms, But in this equation of invitation to reflect, the person who is reflecting, that is you and me, everybody who is being invited, is on one side of the equation. What is the domain of reflection is on the other side. Meaning, if I were to reflect on the falling of the snow, on the coming down of the rain, what I will get out of that reflection is mostly dependent on the lens I have put on. Abu Jahl saw the moon, and what his response was something else. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, he was told, your friend, first he claims that he receives wahi from the other realm, and now he's telling us, oh, he went to Jerusalem last night and he came back. What did Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq say? He wasn't called Abu Bakr Siddiq yet. He wasn't called a Siddiq yet. What did he say? If he said that, I trust. I testify this is the truth. This is the lens. How do we make that lens? How do we make that lens? I always say that we have to know our scholars, and we always have somebody. Today, inshallah, this particular thing that I'm going to say now, let me say that thing first, because I started saying that when I see the falling of the snow or the coming down of the rain, I would say the rain is good. This water is good because this is what we see coming down. But this particular friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah have mercy on him, he said, if you say, yes, this is water coming down, then you are only seeing part of the reality. It's the fruit that you need to reflect on. This rain is coming to give you fruits. And he said, remain attached to the fruits. And he said that if you shatana baina main yastadilu bihi aw yastadilu alayhi, there is a world of difference between the one who yastadil is very who sees the signs, who proceeds to see the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a word of difference between the one who sees the signs to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the one who sees Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then sees the sign. So, there is a word of shatana baina man yastadilu bihi aw yastadilu alayhi al-mustadilu bihi arafa al-haqqa li ahlihi fa asbata al-amra min wujudi aslihi wal-istidlalu alayhi min adam al-wasuli ilayhi wa illa fa mata ghaba hatta yustadalla alayhi وَمَتَى بَوْدَ حَتَّى تَكُونَ الْأَثَارُ هِيَ الَّتِي تُوصِلُ عَلَيْهِ. He says that the one who proceeds to reflect in order to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is absent from, his being is absent from Allah, from connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is searching to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he uses the word tusilu, wasl. Wasl is a state in which wasl is the connection, and is sometimes poorly translated as union, because there is no union possible between the creator and the created. Wasl is the connection. So if you have the connection, he says, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then everywhere, all the signs you see, you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one who doesn't have the connection, he sees the signs and then tries to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you'll never reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Through that, just reflection on that. And this is none other than Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari, Ahmad bin Muhammad bin Abdul Karim bin Abdul Rahman bin Isa Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari. He died in 709, which is 1310. So if we look at our history, there is always somebody in every century. There is always somebody who stands out. Imam Ghazali died in 1111, and then we had Imam al-Qurtubi, and then today we have Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari. So the concern here is to understand that in the equation of reflection, there is the object of reflection in the three realms: the history, the camels, we looked at the creation previously, and what happens within our beings. And on the other side is the one who is looking at it. The part that is very difficult to internalize, I'm going to use an example for it, because we cannot leave our own being. It's impossible for us to leave our own being in order to reconstruct ourselves. We are conditioned to chisel this lens, to make this lens while we are occupying the lens, the material of the lens itself, which is very difficult. It's very difficult to build a Quranic lens because we are enclosed within our own beings, and we cannot leave. At any given time, I am 68-year-old. How am I going to take this 60-year-old stuff from inside and say, okay, now I can rebuild this lens? Because impossible. Every child begins the journey in the womb of the mother, already receiving all these influences in the rahim, in the womb. When the ruh is there, after the biological process, the ruh is there. What is the first thing that develops in the womb in terms of faculties? Is the hearing. The mother is listening to the Qur'an. This baby in the making, yet in the making, is listening to the Qur'an. The sounds of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are going in the construction of the innermost layers of this being. We have a memory, right? Memory is a faculty. May Allah preserve our memory to memorize the Qur'an. But memory is layered. You know these hard drives they are making now? The deepest layer of memory is the one that happens in the womb. Memory is stacked. Faculty is, so you touch those tape recorders where the magnetic tape was there, you touch the thing and it just produces sound waves. The deepest human memory is from the time before the birth. And those influences are making the lens. Those influences which are supra-rational. We cannot even pinpoint those things, what happens in those 9 months. They are there, nobody can get rid of those things. So to cut it short, the inability, and this is all known because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us in this condition. And when he says, Sanurihim ayatina fi anfusihim, that part, fi anfusihim, which means there are processes going on within ourselves. And these are the deepest forces which construct the lens. Because, if we give the example of the camel, أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ, no matter how deeply we study the creation of the camel, it is still outside us. It is acquired knowledge which we can make experiential. But if this body has cancer, if the heart is full of grief, if we have some joy in our coming to ourselves from our children, from our family, from our wife, from our husband, from our learning, from anything, we are in this state of receptivity, of husn, of beauty. This is our own being. This is not looking at the camel anymore. Sanurihim ayatina fi anfusihim, within our own beings. So the three realms which are there for reflect, they are all dependent on the lens that we have. So when we talk about methodology of reflection, Al-Junayd Rahimullah, he said that gnosis is of two kinds: Ma'rifa Ta'aruf and Ma'rifa Ta'rif. The gnosis that we receive of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the understanding that we receive in the first sense, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes Himself known and makes things known to us through Him. Whereas the Ma'rifa al-Ta'rif is that Allah Most High shows us signs of His power, of His majesty in the cosmos and within ourselves through, he uses the word lutfan, by which direct knowledge is imparted on our beings. This requires explanation because lutf, latif comes from lutf, al-latif, ya latif, is one of the Asma al-Husna. Lutf is impossible to translate, but it's the subtlety. It's something that happens which is not even perceivable. It is something that transforms the lens in a way that is not even perceivable. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows, when His mercy comes, the hearts to slowly change and see what was there in a different way. What we saw from external, as an external knowledge, it becomes internalized knowledge. And that is the only real knowledge. Everything else is just information floating around. And the process, the example that with which I want to finish today is the example of osmosis. Osmosis is the slow reception that is almost unconscious. We are not even conscious that this is happening. There is something in the air that we are breathing all the time. We are surrounded inside our chamber. We are in closed systems. All human beings are in closed systems. And this is again one of the, someday I want to talk about, inshallah, when we talk about Risala, the theme of the Risala, this is a very important aspect, because we love our Prophet, we love all the Prophets, but we don't know our Prophet. We don't have access to the inside of any human being. There are spiritual connections that we make with our Prophet ﷺ, and with all the Prophets we make connections. There are spiritual paths to those. But the Prophet ﷺ was a human being who was sent. He had an external life like we all have external lives. People saw him talking, walking, eating, embracing the babies. We have records of those. But what was happening within himself? وَالدُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. And then comes those ayahs. What is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling Prophet ﷺ? No one knows. There is a personal life we all have with the Creator, and no one has access to that except the person who has the experiential reality of that. It's as simple as somebody eating an apple and saying this is delicious, but what does it mean? We don't know. The taste that has come on that particular tongue is intimately connected with that particular tongue, and it's no one else's taste. The process of wahi that came to the Prophet ﷺ, what did that do to him? Inside is absolutely his own experience. It's not, we receive the ayahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the blessed tongue of the Prophet ﷺ, because he tells us this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the experiential reality of receiving wahi is unique to him only, alayhi salatu wassalam. If we think of a tall tower and that is full of water, full of rainwater, that's our being. We are receiving experiential impacts, experiential knowledge from the moment we are conceived in the womb of the mother and the spirit has been infused in the body. We start to receive external influences. First the hearings, then when we are born, the first thing, our eyes are closed. When we are born, our sight is not there yet. It's the touch. And the touch was already there in the womb of the mother, because the child is connected with the mother. The external faculty of touch was already operative. And then slowly the eyes open. The taste wasn't there yet, right? The child is connected, the baby is connected without going through the taste part. The day Sayyidina Ibn Abbas, the day he was born, what did the mother do? She took the baby to the Prophet ﷺ, and he used his blessed saliva and he made the dua, "Oh Allah, give him the knowledge of the Qur'an." A baby is born, the Prophet ﷺ is, because the companions were chosen and the Prophet ﷺ knew who has the receptivity for what. He is our greatest scholar of the Quran. From that touch of the saliva of the Prophet ﷺ that touched his faculty of touching, and then it went in, and then all that. So these are influences which make us. We cannot get rid of them. Then comes the part where parents are making the child into a Nasrani or a Majusi or a Yahudi or a Muslim. Helpless. Children are helpless. Parents take them wherever they take them. They take them to swimming classes, or they take them to the Qur'an classes. They take them to judo karate classes, or they take them to the Qur'an classes or to the memorization. Who is doing it? What are our children learning? What have we learned when we were children? Who decided those things? They were decided for us. We didn't say we want to go to Beacon House, or we want to go to American school, or we want to go. It was all decided for us. What did we study? We didn't decide that. What are we doing now? What are we studying in Skinner Circle or any other school? What are we teaching? Are we deciding, or somebody else has decided? One political party comes to power and they say, okay, social studies, you now teach this. Who is deciding? Who are you people? Like, you are deciding for us, but on what? Are you in education? Like, do you know what education means? Do you know what is good for us? No, they don't. But they are deciding for us because they have their own whatever they have. We don't. Now, this chamber that we are is continuously being bombarded. Every single minute of our existence receives tremendous amount of influences. Emotional, psychological, spiritual, philosophical, information, all of that is a big downpour, continuous. The knowledge that, the lens that we need to construct to look at the world and life and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the Quranic perspective requires that we have processes, living processes within our own beings to filter all of this, what is coming, and have another chamber where the filtered part goes. This is our private being. This is who we are. This is what makes us. This is what's going to decide where we are going in this dunya and what happens to us afterwards. Because all of these forces are out of our control, yet we are not helpless, oppressed beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us internal faculties and external external senses, the five senses, and then He has given us the internal faculties like the aql, tasawwur, like the faculty to see things. Like this image that I'm trying to construct we are able to see ourselves in this big tower full of influences coming all the time. Like this is open from the top. This tower is open from the top. You see, when you drive down the road here on 66th Street, there are these Epcot water towers, big towers. If the top is open, and all the time everything is coming into those. So we are exposed to everything all the time. Like we have walls and we have homes and we have some control, but what we learn is already there. What's in the air, we are now born at this particular time. That this particular time has its own forces operative, like these technologies. The way we construct homes, what we eat, the food, the way we grow our food. This particular time has its own forces operating upon us, and we have no control over them. Like, just think if we were born at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, just if we were able to have His blessed presence, that nur, that light, that radiance, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted us the ability to receive that light in our hearts, in His presence, subhanallah, Yani, what would be the difference between that time and this time? This time which is filled with such darkness. The filters that I'm talking about, if imagine this tower without the solid walls, it's got these filters around it. Wrapped around these filter after filter after filter, meaning all these external influences coming into our being are filtered, are being simultaneously filtered, processed, and taken. The pure Quranic worldview, the pure essence of everything is filtered through this lens. So these filters are the Quranic filters. We put them in place. We see history, we see science, we see every single subject once it's gone through these filters. This is the process of reflection that will build, inshallah, and it's not an overnight process, that will build a lens to look at everything. And there are guidelines for it, to look at everything from the Quranic perspective. And this is something that happens to individuals. It also happens to civilizations, this process that I'm talking about. This, as long as a civilization is active, living, it's like a healthy stomach. So you eat, what does the stomach do? Processes whatever has gone into it, breaks it up, takes everything that is harmful for the body out, extracts the iron that we need and starts the process of making hemoglobin, ferritin, like all of these specific number of elements on this earth. Every single one of them is within ourselves. Otherwise we wouldn't survive. And this is a specific number. It's not unlimited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us from the earth for a reason. So we reflect on the creation of Adam alayhi salam from clay, from this dust, turab, because he was supposed to live on this earth, which is ultimately combination of this specific number of elements. When a civilization or when an individual doesn't have a living stomach, a living, active processing system, what would happen? There is no life. There is no possibility. Then we are just like animals. So the difference between a human being, one of the major differences between a human being and an animal is the ability to see and reflect these three realms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has presented to us for reflection. There are common things between us and animals, like they eat, we eat. They have feelings, we have feelings. They have these biological, physiological systems, we have those. And those who cannot see, they say, well, you are just like them, you are from them. Just because this is made from wood, this is not a tree. This is not a living tree. This is a piece of wood, which is different from a living tree, which has all those processes going. Sunlight, production of so many intricate mechanisms within a tree, resulting in fruit. All of those things this doesn't do that. This is never going to produce apples. This desk is never going to, we cannot say this is just wood and that tree is also wood. So there is a substantial difference between the human beings and non-human beings. There are many differences, but what I just wanted to do in this particular session is to underscore this side of the equation, of the process of reflection. The objects of reflection, the three realms, and the fa'il, the one who is doing the reflection. So when we talk about the need to reflect, this part is often missing because we are looking at the external objects. They need to be reflected on. I'm not saying that we should not reflect on, because there are benefits in them. We have lessons in them. We can, like Imam al-Ghazali, subhanAllah, just imagine, like this is 1,000 years ago. He goes to the orchard, he looks at the beehive. He comes up with this such penetrating wisdom of this one single cell, and says, why is it hexagonal? This is the same process. Like right now, there is tremendous amount of literature on intelligent design and the specified information that is present within our own systems, with every system, which could not have come into existence randomly. All of those things are there. But if you reduce all of this to the basics, it's the same lesson, that this hexagonal cell could not have come into existence without an external guide that guided the bee to make this particular structure. It's impossible for bee to have that knowledge within itself or experiment with different shapes and then reach this situation. So the point is, our ability to benefit from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately depends on how polished is this mirror in which is reflected his science. And those are not rational processes only. There is rational part to it, but rational part tells us that there is but a duration of 24 hours in a given day. Rational part tells us that if we don't have a set number of hours for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us for, we are never going to get there. Imam al-Ghazali says that the difference between hope, between raja and tamanna is wishful thinking and raja is hope. And he says the difference between the two is that the one who has true hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who can hope to have the rewards is the one who prepares the soil in the right season, who makes sure that the seed that he is going to plant is healthy, it's not moldy, it's healthy seed, who knows when the rain is going to come, who has the information of the seasons, and who plants the seeds in the right season, and who covers up the seeds with effort so that the birds don't take away the seeds, and who then waters these seeds that he has planted or she has planted and waits for the germination. And because nobody knows when the rain will fall, so he has made sure that there are some reservoirs of water available at this young age for these seeds to germinate and start the initial stages, because these are very delicate lives. These are the children that come. This is a very delicate stage, but the person has made sure that all of these are sequential in the right season, and he knows when the rains come, and if that year rain doesn't come, then the production the harvest is not as bountiful as it would have been, but he doesn't have control. But he has hope then, because he has taken all these steps, and now he has hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send the rain in the right amount, right season, right time, and he keeps taking care of the plants until the harvest. The one who has tamanna, who is wishful thinking, he's got this piece of land, he's got some seeds, they are molding in some dingy place, in some moist area. He doesn't care, he just goes and throws the seeds on this unprepared land, and then he doesn't water when there is need to water, and eventually he says, I trust in Allah, there will be harvest. He says, this is wishful thinking, this is tamanna. So inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to live our lives in a way which, because we only live one moment at a time, we don't live our whole life all at once. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us 70 years, we don't live those 70 years all in one gulp. We live one moment at a time. And that one moment at a time is part of one day at a time. And one day is divided into what the Prophet ﷺ tells us, divide your day into three divisions. One third of it is for rest. Your body needs rest. You cannot say, this body I can do anything, I can work for 20 hours a day. Rest, 1/3. Ibadah, 1/3. And kasb al-mal, living, making your earnings, 1/3. If we just reflect on that, how many of us, including myself, follow this? And then we have tamanna. We don't have hope, we have tamanna for transformation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to reflect in the right manner, construct this mirror, polish this mirror, have this right lens. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار يا الله أنت حليم كريم عظيم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم اللهم افتح لنا باب رحمتك يا كريم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين يا الله أنت حليم كريم عظيم تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم.